Hello, this is going to be another banger of a video. As the title says, this is the Veilguard's trans representation critiqued by trans men. Critiqued by trans men! I just want to say some things before I get into this. I do not know B-Tier Mutineer. A friend of mine brought this video to my attention. And while I have not watched the entire video is 45 minutes and 32 seconds. I am going to watch the entire video in this reaction. I may cut out some stuff or skip some stuff just because there are things in this video I know that I 100% agree with, but there are some, from what I've seen already, there are some very specific things in the language that he uses in there that I not only disagree, but also I am, for lack of a better word, I am absolutely disgusted with and cannot believe that someone would say this, which is why I want to make this video. Because everyone has their own opinion. Everyone, especially like in the LGBT, queer, whatever you want to call it, community, everyone has their own experiences. It always heavily depends on what your surroundings are like. I started transitioning from female to male when I was basically 14. That's when I was like, I don't want to live like a woman. And that's when I first came out to my friends. Then I came out to my mother, and then I had I think 1 or 2 years where I was just ignoring all of that. With 16, I think I started bringing it up again. Then we got a therapist for me. I'm also gonna mention this later again. But then I went to therapy to figure out if I'm actually trans, and got to a doctor who got me the hormones. Then this was also a mess. And then basically I just recently turned 28. I started going to therapy when I was 16. But I only just now have been on hormones for I think a little bit over a year. So there have been many difficulties, but again, I will get into that later. I just want to put that in there. I have a extremely supportive circle. My friends are all super chill. My family is super supportive and helpful and accepting and everything. So I come from a very fortunate background where I get a lot of help from all sides, and I think that is an important thing to take into consideration when I'm going to address some of the things that B-Tier Mutineer says in this video, because I have with all the logistics, I have the easiest, chillest transition that you can probably have. I am from Germany. I live in Germany. I have always lived in Germany, which is also important fact because it's also, again, different from country to country and all that stuff. So I just want to put these things here, just throw them out so you have a little bit of context who I am when I'm coming out here to critique someone else's take on this game. Sorry, we're not done yet. A little bit more. Just a little side thing. This is my second day on Ritalin. So I hope that, for those who don't know, it's medication for ADHD. I just, like, a few days got actually diagnosed with it, and I'm using this opportunity to maybe be able to structure this video better, like, gather my thoughts. So I'm sorry if I'm going on ramblings like I'm doing right now. It should be better than usual. We will see. Also, I just finished Veilguard yesterday, and I already talked with my friends about it yesterday, so all of my memories of the game are extremely fresh. I have never played a Dragon Age game before, never seen content of Dragon Age before, and I have my difficulties with this game myself, which we address hopefully during the video. I like the game all over. I am a big hater of people who go into a game and just, like, basically hate play it or just go into it so they can hate on it later. Like, I'm no better because I am basically planning on doing this with Bioshock Infinite, but I have played Bioshock Infinite before, which is how I came to it. And yeah, that's just also something I want to say because I noticed something in the video that I'm gonna get a little bit triggered by. I have my own beliefs and takes that are not as popular probably in specifically the online LGBT community. So again, just saying this so you don't think I'm just someone who just wants to hate on this guy's opinion because I want to. I respect this guy's opinion. I absolutely do not agree with a lot of things he says, probably, at least very specific things. Everyone is free to have their own opinion, but there's just, like I said, some things in this video that I just cannot rest over, and it bothers me so much that I have to make this video. Because I just want to give a perspective from another trans guy who has a who has different views. So B-Tier Mutineer, if for some reason you're seeing this video, which I mean, I don't know, but I don't think so, because I have basically no presence on YouTube. Please don't see this as an attack. If you do, I am absolutely happy to talk about it in a civilized manner in comments or whatever. I'm not trying to attack you. I think that the language you use in some of the spots is very harmful in a way, and I just want to give my 2 cents, or how we say in Germany, I want to put my mustard to this, because one last thing. If you watch this video in completion, thank you, but also if you are interested in just me talking about the game itself and just touching on some of these subjects, I will be recording an entire overall review of the game. So yeah, if you're interested in just review of someone who has never played any Dragon Age game, and also Dragon Age isn't really the type of game I usually play, yeah, there will be a video coming out, just throwing that out there. So again, I will link the original video, it will be linked in the description below. This video is by B-Tier Mutineer on YouTube. Check him out if you want to see the video yourself. Not the entire video will be in this video, so blah. Don't take my word as gospel, don't take his word as gospel, just make your own opinion or ignore all our opinions because you are your own person. This is just my perspective, this is his perspective. Do with that what you want. Let's go.
Hello, I'm Nate, aka B-Tier Mutineer. If you've been around a while, you'll know that Dragon Age Origins is my all-time favorite game, and I love the Dragon Age series for its storytelling, fascinating fantasy world building, and diverse, morally complex characters. You may also know that I'm trans, queer, and neurodivergent, since I've mentioned it in my initial video about Veilguard.
Oh yeah, I can also say I am also trans, queer, and neurodivergent. I, obviously trans. I don't really think about my sexuality, so it doesn't fucking matter. And I am neurodivergent. I have been diagnosed with chronic depression, social anxiety disorder, and now a little bit of autism. I have 20 out of 50 autism, and ADHD. Like, we're on the same page here. We're clicking.
Is for some reason ignoring some extremely obvious details about the poor quality of Veilguard's trans representation. So here is my analysis and critique of the so-called woke representation of trans people in Dragon Age to Veilguard.
My friend who is very much into Dragon Age has mentioned that there has been, I think, ever since the game was, like, I'm not 100% sure of what I'm saying right now. I think since the game was in work or announced or something like that, or at least recently before release, there has been a lot of discourse. I don't know anything again about Veilguard. I don't know what the community is like. I just take whatever Nate says about what's going on in the community because I have absolutely no idea.
I am aware of the fact that making this video is likely going to get me hate from both sides, but I don't care.
I'm sorry.
I get that representing minorities in media is far more complex than just including them there to check a box. I would also like to mention that I am not American or Canadian, despite what my accent may sound like. I live in Romania, a country considered part of Eastern Europe.
Europeans.
Aren't great here either in terms of trans, queer, and neurodivergent rights and access to services. And my voice can carry just as much weight as other people's voices in discussions about the representation of aspects of my identity in media.
I 100, again, like it starts off, I completely agree that the whole woke thing and representation in games, I never really cared about representation, but I also, when I started like figuring out who I am, transitioning, all that, I never really had a great sense of dysphoria. Now that I'm actually taking hormones, the dysphoria has gotten more present. Representation is, I think, it's different for everyone. For me, representation is just like, I'm chill, but I don't really need like trans-specific representation because I don't think of myself as a trans man, I just think of myself as a man. So as long as I can play a guy, I can also play a woman in the game. I don't really care, but I just feel more comfortable. I just vibe with playing male characters more. So as long as there's a male option, I'm fine. But I also know that there are people out there who really wanna play as a trans character or as a non-binary. I cannot talk to that because I have different opinions and feelings about this, but I respect that people want to see them how they are in games and stuff. So for that, I'm like, I 100% get why they put things in the game like this. And like, it's not my place to say they should not have included this and that and anything. I am not the person to speak on that. I'm just gonna stop here, but I'm gonna address this in a second again.
Where in the character creator, you have the option to choose whether your character has top surgery scars. Why would transgender characters in Thedas be able to have top surgery? Why would a real-life transmasculine person want to have top surgery scars at all? I'm a trans guy, and I personally haven't had top surgery because my chest is appropriate enough in my opinion that I don't feel the need for it. If I had chosen to have top surgery, I would likely still feel some dysphoria whenever I saw the surgery scars because they would remind me. So no, if I lived in a fantasy world like Thedas, I would not want to undergo surgery that would leave me with extremely obvious scars that would imply to others what my body used to look like before. Let's say medicine is advanced enough. Say that your character is maybe scared of magic and prefers to transition through medical means instead. Even in this case, I don't understand why the top surgery scars are a completely separate option in the...
Okay, I'm just gonna stop there because it's like where it's positioned. This is again something like, technically I agree with this. There are different types of surgeries. I don't know all of them, I just know that, as far as I know, it depends on how much excess skin and just how much material is in the chest. Also, just heavily depends on how good the surgeons are you go to. I personally don't have an issue with if I would be left with a scar. This again is just like, it differs from person to person. I would agree with him on this, that I would not really get why a person who's transitioning, because transitioning is, and like this terminology will come like up later, is a lot of work, and there are trans people. Like, I am open with it. I'm not going up to people and introduce myself as a trans man. If it doesn't come up or if it's not interesting to the conversation, I would not mention it. I was different back in the day. Back in the day, I was more like a person like would have worn trans flags and made it my identity, but I kind of snapped out of this and gone a different direction. Nothing wrong with if you want or if you are this kind of person. I don't personally like it that much, but that's just me. You do you, I do mine. I do mine, yes. So I get him, as I said, saying that why would you want to have this? Why would you show people that you had the surgery? I just want to live my life. Like, this is an absolute valid point and opinion to have. We have to consider though that some people view it differently, and some people, especially those who want to insert themselves into the game and see themselves, who may have these scars, would want to have the scars because they just want to have themselves in the game or something that reminds them of themselves. With me, this is a picture of my rook here. I hope I don't forget to insert it, but there should be a picture of my rook in the game. As you can see, I'm gonna make the joke in my other video again, we are absolutely twins. So I don't really care about having a character in a video game that looks like me. I did choose the option in the game to make my character technically trans by picking it in the mirror, just because I was like, ooh, extra dialogue options, and I immediately kind of regretted it, but again, this will come up later. Right now, focusing on the scars and everything in the character creator. I think just like leaving it at that, saying, yes, I understand, I agree, I don't get why you would want to have it, but some people want to have it. Mutiny here mentions that why aren't they in the scars section? Again, I agree. Probably they didn't put them in the scars section. I would guess it's because you can only have one set of scars, and they don't want the, since they view the trans scars, which also, it's not trans scars, it's mastectomy scars.
Mastectomy.
Not all people who have these scars are trans. Some people just need to have chest surgery for other reasons. For example, the obvious one is being if you have breast cancer or something like that. Some people just for aesthetic reasons. There are also cis women who would get a breast reduction or breast removal for aesthetic reasons. As cis men also get breast reduction and stuff like that. Like, this is not a trans scar, it's just a mastectomy.
Mastectomy.
Scar. And there are many reasons for as to why a person would have them. So if you see someone with these scars, don't just assume they did this or that, because you literally can have absolutely no idea why a person would have these scars. Don't transvestigate, it's not just like that. So that being said, yes, they could have just added them, but I assume they put them separately because they just view them as the trans scars to make it a gender option, and don't want to take away the ability to put other body scars on your character and having to choose between other cool scars and that, because some of the scars are also not just war scars, but more like scarring tattoos. I have my quarrels with the character creator, but that's not what it's like, and it's fine, you know, you can never make everyone happy. Yeah.
You could have absolutely made it possible for people to choose multiple scars to have active on their character. Making the top surgery scars separate seems like it was done specifically to bring a lot of attention onto them. By putting this option front and center, you are just giving more ammunition to the types of people who say that queer and trans people shouldn't be involved in the creation of media because they'll make it all about them and force it down everyone's throats. But not like this. Not in a way that gets more negative attention pointed at us and gets people to be less likely to understand and accept us.
Editing me here, I may drop in now and then when I can make a point shorter and clearer, like now. Yes, I understand where Nate is coming from. I went on a long back and forth here trying to explain both views. So, yes, anti-LGBT people will cry and complain about the gender options in this game. No, that's not a reason to hide them or make them less obvious. Yes, the surgery scars should have just been added to the scar selection, but if a person who cannot be presented with things like scars or basic gender options in an RPG, they should not be playing these types of games and rather spend their time trying to figure out why something like that would upset them. In general, nobody, no matter trans or cis, gay or straight, should shove their business in anyone's face. And just cause a game, especially a Dragon Age, which has featured LGBT topics before, features multiple customization options does not mean a normal thinking rational person will feel like it's being shoved in their face. We do not need to cater to the people who are looking for reasons to be mad. They will find reasons either way and they will weaponize whatever they can get.
You want your character to be a trans man. Keep in mind that these are paraphrasing what your character will say. These options, as they are presented, would have been perfectly fine. However, if you pick any of these things, your character ends up saying something extremely cringy and often completely different from what you expected them to say.
Oh, this is the part, fair warning, I'm going on a rant here, because his comment on this section is what made me extremely pissed off and I went on a long rant. But, that being said, we'll come to this, I 100% agree. I picked that option and I cringed into another universe. This was so painful for me. It's like, you pick the option, your character starts talking, you're like, oh yeah, this is okay, and then basically, I am kind of immersed in this fantasy universe, you know? I like fantasy, I played D&D, I played Earthstone, I played Baldur's Gate.
Hello. I'm gay.
And I like fantasy, it's nice, I have a lot of fantasy stuff. And with fantasy, my brain always connects immediately medieval, Dragon Age being also set in like medieval-ish thing. I don't think terms like trans or non-binary really fit in that universe. Obviously, I don't have a better other term for it. I just feel like they should not have used these words and just, I don't know, talked around because it's very modern. And when my character's like, you know, I don't know the exact word, but like, I struggled, I did not know who I was, but now I'm glad that I can look in the mirror and the man I am looks back at me. And it would have been totally fine if it ended there, but then he continues and goes like, everything started making sense when I realized I was trans. And I was just like, and this is not just with the gender stuff, it's just sometimes there are scenes in there where it's like, it's fine, and then they overdo it. And every time it happens, I'm just like, I am not 100% agree with Nate on this. The writing in this game sometimes is, I just say atrocious, painful, cringe, immersion breaking, which is really sad because all in all I really like the game. But god, this shaving mirror scene, I lost my mind. Like, I was laughing, I was crying, it was hysterical but also very painful.
Ugh. Who in their right mind would say something like that to themselves, no less? What do you mean, I did the work, I stuck with it? What work? You don't work on transitioning, or at least it shouldn't feel like work. You just need hormone treatment and possibly some other assistance such as surgery or perhaps voice therapy in order to transition to a point where you feel comfortable. The transition process is different for every trans person, so that they can feel comfortable in their own skin and so that they can be perceived in the way that they want to be perceived in society.
This part here was the reason that made me want to record this video. And yes, this part will be a voiceover because I went on a very heated, very long rant. That does not mean that this will be less heated or long, but it will be shorter. I will go through this section by taking Nate's direct quotes and explain to you why they are insulting, harmful, and straight up incorrect. Quote, "You don't work on transitioning, or at least it shouldn't feel like work." Quote end. I'm glad you say at least it shouldn't feel like work, because saying transitioning isn't work is just plain false. It is work. It is even a lot of work depending on how much you want to do. Yes, it shouldn't feel like work, No work should feel like work because then life would be much more enjoyable, but work is work. And while figuring out who you are can come natural to some people, others may already need to put in work by researching their feelings, finding people to talk to, sometimes professionals. This is by definition work. In my case, my transition so far consisted of realizing I didn't feel comfortable living like a woman, trying out different gender identities to see what works for me, asking multiple trans people what being trans actually is and how it works, gathering the courage and coming out to my friends, gathering the courage again and coming out to my family, more research so I could properly explain to them what it means, cause nobody really was familiar with it. My mother then did the work of finding a therapist for me who was specialized on the topic of trans identity, so I visited, fortunately, only 2 different therapists and stuck with the second one, which was when I had to put in the work of visiting him regularly, talking, learning, exploring. Then, after around 2 years of that, my mother again did the work for me and found a wonderful doctor who would eventually be able to provide me with my hormones, but before that I again had to do the work and go to other doctors to get everything I need so that this could work out. I still and will forever have to do the work of going to different doctors to get my checkups, get the hormones, get the injections, and soon I will have to work on getting my name and gender legally changed on paper, which includes more paperwork to get all the IDs, insurance, and so on up to date. And yes, I'm starting to laugh because every time I say work, I'm just like, and guess what? If I want to get any surgery, that will be more work. And trust me, none of this is cheap. None of this is necessarily easy. I was fortunate enough that my parents and insurance pay for everything and my mother does all my paperwork for me. I only have to make appointments and get there and get whatever paperwork to my mother so she can help me further. If it wasn't for my mother, I would have to take the support from the government agency, which is already helping me, cause mostly thanks to my brain issues, I'm not fully capable of handling all of this myself due to how stressful it is for me. So Nate, you don't need to be so condescending. I am happy for you if it was just get your hormones and possibly some other assistance, but believe me when I tell you that it's not something that most people can just do. I don't understand how you can even put it like this as if this is the easiest thing ever, after even recognizing that in your own country it's not that easy or even like looked upon that well. There are people who would get disowned at best for even just being bisexual. And I can say now, cause I know how this video continues, that you are and will continue to gatekeep what transitioning and being trans can be like so heavily that all your input of, oh, but it's different for everyone, holds no meaning. Voice therapy is also something you mentioned, and believe it or not, I also had voice therapy as a child though. I had a speech disorder, which I still have traces of to this day, and I had to go to therapy for that. It was, and this will be shocking, a lot of work. It was physically exhausting, even cause it was hours of having to train my face and specifically mouth muscles. Again, by all definitions, this is work and it feels like work, because it is physical and can be mental work if you want, for example, to consciously lower your voice or making your speech sound softer. Now I can imagine if someone never had the need for that kind of therapy, they don't really know what it actually is like. I don't know if you, Nate, ever had this kind of therapy, but if that is the case, you have even less ground to stand on when it comes to judging if transitioning is or feels like work. I never had gender-affirming voice therapy, cause as a trans man on hormones, we both have the luxury that testosterone, amongst other things, gives us a lower, rougher voice. This also doesn't apply to everyone. Even I did some voice training before I went on T, just to try and lower my voice. I even still do it to this day before recording sometimes. My voice is still pretty high, will probably always be, but it has gotten rougher and noticeably lower compared to this.
Hello everybody. So I just went on.
Since I already went on a long rant just now, I will make this short.
It is an extremely liberating and joyful thing as you begin to feel more like your exterior matches your interior.
It is, if you have the ability to transition comfortably without having the fear of being disowned, bullied, generally harassed, or even killed. I live in a very LGBT-friendly city, and even I got harassed multiple times just for looking gay.
You don't stick with it. You simply do it because that's the only thing that feels right to do. I'm sorry to say that if you feel like transitioning is work, or that you have to stick with it, maybe you aren't as certain of your identity as you'd like to think you are. Maybe you need some therapy first to get over the trauma you very clearly have.
Hand in hand with the other one, it's so easy to say, isn't it, Nate? Just stick with it. Please explain this to people who have to fear for their life if they just want to stick with who they are. Explain how simple it is to people who come out and have to choose between sticking to who they are and losing their friends and family, ending up homeless and what else, or they have to accept their current situation but remain with a roof above their head. I cannot express how absolutely ignorant and disgusting your words here are. Again, I don't understand how you can say these kind of things, say that people who do not have the luxury of simply being who they are maybe just need more therapy. How can you say that and then follow up with...
And before I move on to the other options, let me also just mention another thing that people part of Veilguard's development clearly have no idea about. Just because you're trans, it does not mean that you have to go through a transition process. You don't have to act more masculine or act more feminine or look androgynous to be a real trans or non-binary person.
Because you make it sound like you are aware that the transitioning process is vastly different for every single person. But then why do you keep basing everyone's situation on your own narrow understanding and insult those who don't fit with your own experience? What I needed to say on that topic. Don't be like that, please. Please, Nate, again, if you are watching this. This is not an attack. I mean, it is an attack. I am straight up attacking you on what you said. I'm saying that what you said is disgusting and vile. I take it. That is my opinion. Please, I hope that you can... just like if you are watching this. I hope that if you are watching this and hear what I say, you understand what I'm saying. I am absolutely, I am happy if for you everything was so smooth so far. But that is definitely not the norm. It is, straight up, objectively, it is work. You have to put work in. All the decisions, every decision you have to make is work. It is stressful. Some people have to decide to stick with it. Some people don't. Please don't say things like, oh, maybe you're just unsure with your gender or need more identity or you have need more identity. You know what you know what I mean. I do not like putting it like that. And again, there are many things I agree with you on, but just I'm trying to get what you're saying with this, but boy, yeah. I'm only 7 minutes into this video.
If you choose I'm getting there when you look in the mirror, I was personally expecting my character to talk about how they're still going through the transition process and haven't yet reached a point where they're 100% comfortable with their body and appearance, but that it's been getting better. Instead, Rook says, I don't know, Varric. Catching my reflection still hits hard some days, but knowing who I am is worth it. And every day when I look in that mirror, I'm closer to seeing the man I want to be staring back. Now look, this option is slightly better than the first one, but it's still extremely dramatic and cringy. And even worse than that, it kind of implies that knowing who you are is some magical part of being trans that makes everything better. No. I have known who I am since I was 4 years old, and knowing who I was from such an early age only made me feel worse about life because I had to endure people misgendering me and treating me like a girl for far too many years until I became an adult and was finally able to make my own choices and transition.
Okay, I don't really understand, his issue with what the character says here, because he says he expects the character to say that, I haven't reached that point, but I'm getting there, which is exactly what the character says. I think the dialogue, as I said, it's not just the gender stuff. A lot of the dialogue is, in my opinion, cringy and overdramatic. As far as I understand, that's also just a little bit how Dragon Age is. So I don't think this is just how they decided to represent the gender dialogue options. I think it's just the game quality-wise. So I wouldn't just say they just don't know how to do gender. It's a bigger issue here. Yes, Nate, you mentioned for you it was since you were 4 stuff. Again, me, I was 14 or something when I think I was 14 when I even learned that, oh, you can change your gender. This again is very different for people. I think I forgot to mention that it was before that some people, transitioning is different for everyone. Some people don't do this, some people don't go through hormone therapy and everything, which again, it's different for everybody. I understand that. This is where I also have my personal differences, because for me being trans means that I was born as a woman, I was born as a child, going to be a woman. I did not want to be a woman, I want to be a man, so I'm doing everything so I can be a man. Or I don't even care, you can view me as anything, I just want to feel like who I am. I just want to feel like a man. And I think this is something where Nate and I also agree on, because he mentioned this earlier, that why would a trans person want the scars? Because they want to be their gender. They don't want to be like transvestigated by people who see the scars and like, oh, no. But my baseline is, I don't care what gender anyone is. I don't care what pronouns you use, because my opinion doesn't fucking matter. If you come to me, you say, this is who I am, this is my name, this is my gender, please address me like this, I will do that. And why? Because I respect you. I have my opinions and my worldview, and I don't know if I'm correct. I'm probably not. Is your opinion and worldview correct? Probably not either, because there is no right or wrong. Gender and everything, as we know, or should know, here's a little lesson, is made up. If I say there are only 2 or 3 genders, I am in no position to tell anyone how to transition, what their gender is, what their pronouns. I am in no position to deny someone to live their life how they want to be, who they want to be. I respect people. That's the least I can do. I will not tell anyone that they're transitioning incorrect. I will not do any of these things, because I am in no place to do that, because my opinion does not matter. Mind your own business. Love the people, support them, even if you don't agree with their lifestyle. You know, we are meant to be loving of our neighbor. So please, ignore the religion aspect, ignore your own worldview, ignore all that stuff. Respect people for who they are. I just hope that what I'm trying to say is coming across, you know? I'm not trying to be hateful. I'm trying to be the exact opposite, to just tell you, accept people even if you don't agree with them, and don't gatekeep the trans experience, don't gatekeep the transitioning. Wow, I did not expect to go on that segue. Anyway, let's continue.
Knowing who you are is a basic part of being human. If you don't know who you are, then I think you have some mental issues.
The worst thing is I see how the sentence I think I said enough that I'm not gonna address what he's saying here, because
Everyone knows who they are, or else if they don't, it simply means they're still a child and haven't had enough experiences to discover their various perspectives and preferences that make up their personality and identity. I understand that some trans people realize that they are trans later in life than I did, but I still think it's harmful to say knowing who I am is worth it, because at first, knowing who you are only brings you misery and dysphoria, because who you are inside doesn't match the outside. I have no idea who wrote this crap, but they
I'm sorry, I'm lost. What is he saying? If you don't know who you are, you have mental issues or are a child. But I also get that some people realize that later. What are you?
The woman was too stunned to speak.
Like, I'm sorry, Nate. I also really hope that Nate was your name and I'm not misremembering. But why are you saying this? I think also there is a sense of, I don't know if hypocrisy is the correct term, but it's like you say you get it and then you say something so incredibly ridiculous. You acknowledge that people may realize it later, but then also say that if you don't know it from the beginning, you have issues. Like, how can you say this in basically like back to back? I don't know. It's like I have friends who only recently came out as who they are because they met someone and suddenly were like, oh, I guess I'm this. Like, things change all the time. So yes, some people have, and I think that's like the perfect trans experience when you as a child show signs that you are more like a different gender, and then it can be addressed early on and stuff like that. That is great. If you have this experience, perfect, beautiful. If you have an environment that helps you with that, even, like, that's fantastic. But that's just not how it is for everyone. And you should not make it a point to be like, this has something to do with mental issues and something like that. It's just like, experience shape who you are, which is also kind of a topic in Veilguard, that we are like like there's it's called character development. We are people, we do character development. I'm sorry, Nate, again, but holy fuck, why would you say that? I will be crashing my own video from here on out, because everything you have seen so far are from the first hour of a 5-hour recording. Every point I addressed that I disagreed with or found problematic, hell, even the points I agreed with, I dissected for hours, and logically, after having watched the entire video, I can make things way shorter. Before I go further into what B-Tier Mutineers says in the video, I want to address something about the footage. As someone who likes to watch videos of other people talking about something I'm interested in, footage is important. As you, if you are watching and don't just have the video running in the back, which is fine, you saw that I used some of my own footage from the Veilguard playthrough when I edit my voiceover. Here, like this. I do this because on one hand I just have a lot of recordings, but also it helps people see what my experience with the game was like. You can see I played the game, you see some of my cutscenes and playstyle and all that stuff. If someone would make a video on, let's say, Cuphead, saying the game is trash, but then you see the footage and realize that person couldn't even get through the tutorial, you would view their opinion differently, right? Now, I was sitting here and watched the guy's hour-long rant for over 5 hours. Mostly minor issues in a not great, but in my opinion, good game, while I watched whatever that is being shown in the character creator. I don't know where it was, but somewhere in this video or the description he mentioned that the game sucked, but at least you could make Monster Factory designs with the character creator. Nothing against Monster Factory, the final Pam is a legend, but if you are making a video talking about how unrealistic and unimmersive the game was for you, wouldn't it help having a character you relate to? Again, my opinion. But if I was hung up on minor details such as Nate's issue with the game not having his literal life experience as an option in the dialogue tree,
visceral reaction, because that's not what I wanted my character to say. I thought my rook would say that their transition took a long time, but that they're now really happy with where they are and it feels so good to see themselves in the mirror.
I agree with that, because my interpretation I think was also that feels good to see the real me, like, feels good to see the real me, like, you know, it took a hot second, but now, hey, this is what, yeah, this was basically I think we had the same interpretation of that sentence. Which I think wasn't it
this option because I thought it would describe my experience as someone who had to wait quite a long time to be able to transition, and it also took a few years until I got to a point where I truly felt comfortable in my body. The reason this choice bothers me isn't because of that. It bothers me because the paraphrased option that you choose does not imply whatsoever that you are about to say that your character realized they were trans later in life.
I would say that's just a nitpick. This is really just an interpretation thing. I don't know what to, like, this is nothing I can go deep in. It's just like, you thought they meant that it took a long time till you could transition, but they just meant it took a long time till I figured it out. I'm sorry that the game does not represent what you wanted to say, but it's nothing to go off on the game about just because it does not have your exact experience in there. I hope you also recognize that. I don't know if you're gonna mention that, but you know.
I did not want to choose this option for my character. If I want to create a trans character in a video game, if I have such an option to comment on how they feel about their trans identity, I want my experience to be included too. I don't want my character to not have known they were trans for a long time. I knew since I was a little kid. Let my character have that option too. If you're including the option to say Rook realized their gender identity later in life, then you have to have an option for people who basically always knew as well.
No, you don't need to include that. You absolutely, there's no fucking reason for the devs of this game to include that, just because your niche experience that they owe you absolutely nothing. There are so many different experiences. What the fuck do you expect them to do? Have this dialogue tree? Like, this is what I mean. Like, Nate, I understand where you're coming from. You want, it just to me feels like things, when you say things like this, it just feels like you try to find any reason to shit on the game. Because that is truly an absolutely ridiculous statement. It is literally impossible to consider every option. I am, like, it's already amazing that they added the option of being trans at all. It's very thoughtful of them. It's very nice that they wanted to be, like, inclusive and all that stuff. I think a lot of people will appreciate it just for them including this. this is not a thing where you can make any demands. Like this, you should be happy that they at least like give you different options to even say that. They did not just be like, hey, is your character trans, yes or no? But you can actually elaborate on that. It doesn't even matter what you say there. So it just seems that you're very aggressive about them not having your very specific experience in there, which is just, I don't know, because again, they also do not have my experience in there, because I am one person out of I don't know how many thousands is probably low number, but yeah, I don't. It's a bit. I would be more ripped out of my immersion if I was looking at this in every scene, but I cannot even tell if this is from his playthrough, his footage, because there are multiple different rooks in this video. For the sake of the video, I want to believe that you actually played the game and tried to enjoy it, but from everything you say, it sounds like you didn't even give it a chance. I was thinking of watching your other 2 videos on Veilguard just as a reference, but I don't think I can sit through that without exploding. I just took a glance at this video and found you're also complaining about the enemy design, which, to be fair, is a matter of taste. In my opinion, the designs in this game are fantastic. I love the Blighted and especially some of the bosses like the Gloomhowler. The graphics in this game are amazing, so I don't get they look like mobile game enemies, especially since that is a nothing burger nowadays. Warframe is also on mobile. So what was that about a piss bucket in your face? Does it mean the designs are different than the ones on PC? But that's just a side note. To get back on track, other things that make me feel like you either actually haven't played the game, haven't paid attention, done no further research, or simply make things up to hate on the game that you decided you don't like because of very specific personal issues, you are lying. In your video, in the 45 minutes and 33 seconds that I sat through and analyzed for 5 hours in a Ritalin-induced state of hyper-focus, I went from, oh, he just has very strong opinions and I guess I get where he's coming from, over, okay, maybe he didn't word it correctly, all the way to, my man, you are making shit up. And you may wonder, what are these lies? And I apologize, because from now on, we are no longer following the timeline. Again, the original video will be linked below, and for full context and comparison, I guess I suggest you watch his video, though I can't really suggest it with a clear conscience anymore, because I honestly believe this video to be hateful and harmful. And yes, I am also a bit hateful here, I am upset, I take it. But either way, I'm giving my opinion, my reaction to his opinion, so it's only fair that I am open with my bias and agenda, so you can compare and make up your own mind. Starting with this, what I consider being a lie. At a later point in this video where he talks about Taash and their character, Nate mentions that Taash, no matter what they say or do, cannot be disagreed with or called out.
Certainly pair an extremely dumb way of speaking with that, as well as forcing every player to agree with this character on pretty much everything, and you've guaranteed that this is one of the most hateable characters in the entire game.
This is incorrect. I do not like Taash, mind you. Not because of their gender or anything like that, I just do not vibe with their character type. I'm not a fan of the brawn or brain thing. I also don't like Callout that much in Baldur's Gate 3, who I believe is a similar character type.
Do I smell beef?
Just not as rude as Taash sometimes comes across as, but also I feel like the characters in Baldur's Gate 3 just have more fleshed out character type, so I could bond better with Callout than I could with Taash. Taash says some dumb stuff now and then. They are blunt and rude, aggressive. But with that 5-hour analysis I did, I actually forced myself to analyze Taash more. I will get to that later, so now I can say, yeah, I don't like them, but I don't hate them. I understand what they are supposed to be like, I guess. And to get back to the point, no, Taash 100% gets their reality checks. It is extremely unfair and misleading to claim that it's only Taash you cannot be rude to or disagree with. The character you play as in the Veilguard is in general a very kind and supportive one. It is pretty much impossible to be rude or argue with people no matter what dialogue options you pick, with some obvious exceptions. You can overhear your companion's banter where Taash sometimes says ridiculous and rude stuff and other characters react to it and straight up tell them that no, they are incorrect.
What? No.
In general, the topic in the game is that we have this big bad evil we need to fight. We cannot afford splitting up, no matter our differences. which is why all your companions and NPCs are kind of letting things slide and try to patiently work things out. This is not an interpretation from my side, this is a fact in the game that is being talked about, especially when companions are fighting. As an Emmerich enjoyer, I can also immediately point out the scene where Taash is being insanely offensive towards Emmerich and he snaps back at them. As you join the scene with basically no context, you immediately get the option to either side with Emmerich, Taash, or take a neutral stance and help them work things out, pretty much. And no, this isn't even like an exclusive one-time scene with Taash and Emmerich. This isn't exclusive so you can get brownie points for siding with a trans character or anything. No, some characters just do not vibe with each other.
I prefer tea. Ugh.
Sometimes they clash. You have a very similar scene with Lucanis and Devrin, who are also a little bit with each other. So all in all, this issue has nothing to do with the video's topic. This is not a gender thing. This is nothing with how they decided to represent a trans person. It's simply characters clashing, and Taash is not simply a trans character who goes through a journey of finding themselves. They are also a person. And Nate and I agree on this thing as well, that trans people should not necessarily be represented as those angels who can't do anything wrong, because that is not realistic. Gender as well as mental or physical disabilities are never an excuse for behavior, should not be used as an excuse, and also have nothing to do with a person's actions. Taash is a person with a flawed character due to who they are and their environment, and they just so happen to be trans. And I just want to point out, because this is not an info, maybe I'm just dumb, that I had all my life. When I say Taash is a trans character, trans is just a term for anyone whose gender identity doesn't match up with what they have been assigned at birth. So Taash being a non-binary character also makes him a trans character. Boom. But before I go further into Taash, again, you cannot disagree or call them out. Wrong. You absolutely can. The other lie, where to be fair, I have to correct myself, it wasn't fully a lie. I had this different in my memory, but now I rewatched the video for the billionth time, and I will still put it here because it is just not correct, or I don't even understand how Nate is upset about this, because again, this is a nothing burger. But yeah, I love this a lot. It's the scene where Taash and Neve are kind of arguing over clothes, and there's this line where Taash claims nobody likes being a woman. Neve responds to this with a simple ah. Nate here then claims that this is...
It's absolutely offensive and invalidating to a lot of other people's experience to say that nobody likes being a woman.
Which already is ironic, since he himself has claimed absolutely offensive and invalidating things before, such as...
If you don't know who you are, then I think you have some mental issues.
Yeah. But he continues with...
Plenty of women love being women, including trans women.
Nate, my man. Yes. Usually, best case, women love being women. You are correct.
This statement screams of self-hatred and internalized misogyny.
Nate, Taash is not a woman. Taash is non-binary. They say this because at that point they don't yet know who they are and think that they are a woman, and since they don't like the experience, they assume that it's normal to not like being a woman as a woman. This is not internalized misogyny, this is dysphoria, something you talked about early on when you claimed that knowing who you are is bad cause it gives you what? Dysphoria. You have all the dots right in front of you in your own script, you just gotta connect them.
Neve's only reaction is to say, ah. I don't even know what that means. I have no idea.
Yeah, that is a you problem.
What Neve is implying when she says, ah, in response to Taash saying that nobody likes being a woman. Does Neve not like being a woman either?
No!
Imply she agrees? We don't really know because Neve herself doesn't actually comment on this.
Okay, I give you this one. But only because a little bit from now on you mentioned that you have autism. Not to what degree, you don't elaborate on how it manifests, you just mention it. And at face value, that's fine. I am in no position to demand you to elaborate or mention it at all. However, as I said before, disabilities and all that are never an excuse, especially not if you are aware that you have them. I also have autism. I don't elaborate on it because I don't think I have it to a degree that changes my behavior in a big way. So I don't expect my autism to be an influence in how I understand or pick up on social cues. I'm just a little bit dumb sometimes. Point is, there's no reason for me to bring it up except for this case right here, right now, to show that Nate and I, again, we have something in common. Now, I want anyone watching this to keep the autism claim in mind, because I know that it can make it difficult to pick up on social cues. I really wish Nate would have added more context and maybe even addressed this at the beginning of the video so I could know if some of the things he says may be due to some unawareness, because what I'm about to go into could simply be due to this lack of social awareness and understanding, but I wouldn't know. So in this case, I can actually tell you what Neve's response means.
Nobody likes being a woman.
The tone is one of recognition. Neve simply implies that she understands. It's not a, me too. It is an, there it is. With Taash's claim, Neve immediately understands that Taash does not feel like a woman, and there's probably more to it. Which becomes even more obvious when you consider that her response in that same scene would be that she knows people who feel the same and can connect Taash with them, and basically do what sounds like group therapy so they can figure out their identity. You show in your video footage of a female rook's response, which is calling out Taash on their claim that no woman likes being a woman. A female rook says that Taash is incorrect and women love being women. A trans rook, which you claimed you played as far as I understand, in my case I was a trans man, responds to that claim that you felt similar and it might mean that Taash isn't female but maybe something else. So I honestly don't understand what you mean with too little too late. This conversation is super short. Taash makes a claim, Neve responds, you respond. Everybody in this group, no matter the gender of your rook, understands that Taash is struggling and offers help in whatever way possible. I don't know what you want. Do you want the characters to be angry at them for being confused? Do you want players who may be struggling with their own identity see someone they might relate to be shamed and yelled at for being lost? I personally feel this scene was handled nicely. Again, writing is neither here or there for the entire game, but all in all this scene is good. You continue on and on with how Taash's reaction, their doubt of how would knowing that help, which comes from a person who has never experienced this. Someone who probably never experienced this kind of support and understanding. Taash is scared, unsure. They have no idea that figuring out their gender would help them. They probably don't even know what that truly means. Again, it's just you, Nate, who sounds extremely hateful and gatekeeping towards this fictional character. And don't blame BioWare now for giving different lines and roughly different outcomes of a conversation in a role-playing game that lets you make decisions. I don't even know what to say to this. Again, it just seems like you know that people have different experiences, but only accept your own to be a positive and correct representation in this game that owes you nothing.
Maybe what they say fits how you're feeling.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, I wanna hear your take on this. I wanna hear your take.
You look really
Oh,
pretty.
please. Please make it good.
Oh,
To look at, I'd smudge your makeup.
thanks for letting me down gently.
First of all, yuck. I'm sorry, I think that is the most explicitly sexual thing I've heard in a Dragon Age game, not even—
You should have... Nate, please do more research. Again, this is something where you either didn't play the game, didn't romance anyone, or just didn't do research. My brother in Christ, while playing, I get pressed against the wall, sniffed and growled at. I told my man Emric that I would bone him if he was just bones. Devon used the term hand-to-bone combat.
But if you need any tips on hand-to-bone combat,
I had the Devil's Tango, potentially 2 times in one cutscene. What do you mean? The most explicitly sexual thing in a Dragon Age game. This isn't even the most explicitly sexual thing in this Dragon Age game. Not even in a romance setting, not even for one character. Have we played the same game? And I'm sure that the other games had these things. I will be playing Inquisition at some point, but right now I can only assume that maybe you just, I don't know, probably didn't romance anyone or didn't pick up on some of the things people are saying. I have no clue how you come to this conclusion. Bro, what the fuck is happening in your face? Your brain, fuck me. And yes, this is the point where you mentioned that you are autistic and on the A spectrum. I am not that deep in LGBT stuff, I have no idea. I could say, I already said what I want to say about the autism. I could say I am on the A spectrum because I've been offered sex, I've been offered relationships, I've denied both of them. And to this day, as I said, 28 years old, I never had sex and I don't really see the appeal in it still. I know too much information, I'm sorry to my friends, but yeah, you know, I just want to say this because, again, we are on the same page and it has nothing to do with that. The whole ending of that scene with the makeup comment, that's just a bit of light-hearted banter, so they, like, it's just fun. But as we are going to see next, soon, with the Bharv Scene, you are not a fan of that either. And I will quickly skip over the mother part and address the Bharv Scene and the notes, cause those are done fast.
But like hanging out with lords more than girls. Ashamed of not doing what your gender should do. Ugh.
To the notes, excuse my French here, but you are being fucking rude, my man. Those are notes. There are many ways to write notes, and while again I give you the girls smell good point, cause the whole theme of smelling in this game is just a little bit weird, yeah, but all in all, those are notes. You don't need to read them in such a way. Cool if it's not the way you write your notes, but people do write notes like this. I write notes like this. I even write verse notes like this that are so badly written and shortened that I don't even know what I wanted to convey the day after. I also write long, beautiful notes. I like to think that I can, if I feel like it, write very well indeed and use an elaborate, flowery vocabulary. I can write emotional stories and poems, but I don't need that when I just want to take notes that help me remember things for a conversation. Which these notes are supposed to be. They are personal notes that don't need to sound like a science thesis. Get a grip, it's not that deep. Stop being pretentious, Nate. The Bharv Scene is a fun little scene where Isabella accidentally slips up and misgenders Taash, which happens to me also constantly. I also accidentally misgender my non-binary friend now and then. I also misgender myself now and then. My own family misgenders me all the time. This scene here shows you that it can happen. It's not malicious, it's not to make fun of Taash or trans people, it shows that it can happen, you don't have to snap at people for it or assume that they are being mean. This scene perfectly shows that it can happen to anyone, and it can be even more uncomfortable to the people who do the misgendering cause they feel bad. Case in point, I don't give a shit if you misgender me, as long as you're not obviously doing it maliciously. I once helped at my sister's place when she was moving and one of her friends misgendered me. I didn't even know that he knew I was trans. And apparently my sister told me, he came up to her afterwards and was freaking out like, oh my god, I'm so sorry, I misgendered your brother, what the fuck am I supposed to do? And my sister was just like, you know, if he doesn't say anything, just, you know, whatever, it's okay. And I felt bad because I was like, oh, that poor guy had such a freak out over it, while I did not give a shit. In this scene, Isabella shows that she understands she messed up and punishes herself for it by doing 10 push-ups. It is not serious. Nobody in the scene is getting mad, it's a light-hearted moment between friends, just like the notes. Get a grip, it's not that deep, there is no hidden message here, and if you interpret it as so incredibly harmful, then I'm here more so wondering how you can interpret everything in such a negative way. And again, who do you think you are to decide what a normal trans person wants or even is? You can't even accept that people can find themselves later in life, and yes, I will reference that forever, cause it's such an insane take. I am sorry, but I will change the video structure one last time. By far, I have not put on everything I said from my initial reaction. I guess you can imagine how many things I had to comment on in order to turn a 45-minute video into 5 hours. This doesn't mean that I disagreed with Nate on everything. On the contrary, I do feel like we had things in common in our view, agreed on writing issues and other things. However, it has now been 3 days or so since my first deep dive. During this time, I second-guessed myself multiple times and considered just scrapping this video. Yesterday, I then decided to just do the voiceovers and make the video shorter and editing easier, then again wanted to scrap it, but 2 things kept me from doing so. One being my friend begging me to not delete it, and the other thing was the more I thought about and shared my opinions with my friends, I realized that this was actually closer to my heart than I thought. Of course, during my initial reaction, I said some things that I cut out or later worded differently, because I felt they weren't relevant to the topic at hand, worded incorrectly, or you know, other stuff like that. And that was where I started to regret. Cause originally I was being, all things considered, extremely nice and charitable. From the footage you can see that I have many heated moments, but all over I was constantly trying to make light of things and try to interpret B-Tier Mutineers words in the most charitable way. By doing that I made excuses. I thought he may just be bad at wording things, maybe he's socially unaware, but I'm sitting here writing the script to make sure that whatever I would say from here on out in these final thoughts of the video comes out as close as to what I want to convey as I can. So yes, this is the finale of the video. I will put no more clips or quotes in here. I will no longer go into detail and dissect single issues from Nate's original one. This is no longer a reaction, this is me putting out my thoughts because I'm actually concerned about the things said in the original video. I can still address things later on if anyone is actually interested in my opinion on specific things, but from here on out till the end of the video I want to wrap things up. I want to explain to you why I say what I'm saying, why I decided to basically scrap 4 out of 5 hours and why I regret trying to be nice about Nate's opinions. So for those who want to see this as a TLDR, I will quickly repeat and reintroduce myself. My name is Buck, I am a man, a trans man at that. I realized I was trans around 14 years old and started my transitioning process at around 16. I've had it easy, not smooth, not always pleasant, but I have always been safe and always been accepted by those I care about. Just like Nate, I am neurodivergent. None of my diagnoses matter here or should excuse what I say or do, except for my ADHD cause the meds are giving me a dry mouth and I really hope that it's not horrible on the recording. Also, if it wasn't obvious by now, I usually like to make fun of things because I don't want things to get too serious and depressing here. Everything I have said in this video and will say are my opinion. My feelings, my knowledge, all of this is completely based on my worldview, my research, what I believe to be true and right. I have gotten my knowledge on LGBT topics, be they social or medical, from many sources and my own experience and opinions that I have shaped by listening to multiple sources. These are, but not limited to, therapists specialized on trans identity, doctors with and without specialization, friends, family and friends of friends. Those include LGBT individuals and non-LGBT individuals, including but not limited to cis people and trans people, including male, female and non-binary. I listened to YouTubers speak on their personal transitions and experiences and read through forums during times where I needed more insight into health and lifestyle choices. My own opinions have changed drastically over the years and will probably continue to change. I think of myself as quite knowledgeable and educated when it comes to the topic of LGBT issues and all. However, with all that in mind, I do not speak for the LGBT community. I do not speak for trans individuals, I do not speak for trans masculine individuals. I cannot and will never claim that I could even do such a thing, as I am in no position to speak on what life is like for other people. I can share the things that I've heard and know, and that is all. This is important, because already this is a thing where Nate and I apparently have different opinions. At one point I thought of myself as non-binary. I thought I had an idea of what it's like, but I do not. And I accept it. I could never imagine what it's like. Even if 100 non-binary identifying people would explain to me what it's like and they all have the exact same experience and feelings, I wouldn't know what it feels like. Because I am not non-binary. I am also not a woman. I will never know what it would have been like to be born and raised as a man. I only know what it's like to be me. And that is okay. And funnily enough, I can also as a trans man directly tell you that your surrounding treats you different based on what gender they assume you are, which makes it even more impossible for me to try to imagine what life as someone else is like. Nate on the other hand, in his video acknowledges that everyone has different experiences, and then he continues on saying that people with other experiences than his are sick, traumatized or children. Despite saying he knew he was a man since the age of 4, Nate makes it very clear in his video that apparently he knows what being non-binary is like. In fact, he is so sure of it that when Taash in the game says they felt comfortable when being told that they are behaving more like a man than a woman, Nate thought it would be appropriate to say that this means they are not non-binary, but rather a trans man like him. And I will come back to that in a moment, because throughout the video it really appears to me like Nate is just, for the lack of a better word, butthurt that the game isn't exactly suited to his very specific experience and doesn't have enough trans man mentions for his liking. To which I can only say what I always say when people think they can make demands from games that owe them nothing: make your own game. If you want a game to tell your story, make it yourself. Or find a nice person who wants to do that for you. But unfortunately, learning how to do that is work, and I don't think Nate is a big fan of that. Which, same, but still, I studied game making, and if the stars align I may go back to doing that again. I do not think that my video here will get a lot of traction, if any at all, but just in case, do not go over to B-Tier Mutineer and harass him. Don't comment things on my behalf based on what I say. Do not. I don't want to spread hate. The purpose of this video here is to give my opinion on what I find to be an extremely uneducated, biased and harmful video. I want that whoever watches my video to simply take my opinions as food for thought to make up your own mind. I rather wouldn't, but for transparency's sake, his video will be linked in my description, and for full context you should watch his video. I will be honest, I don't want more people to watch this video. I wish he would just delete it at the very least, but I am not demanding any such things, because he is allowed to have his opinions and put out his thoughts as much as I am, no matter my opinion of his. Now, I will review his video. I find his video, Veilguard's trans representation critiqued by a trans guy, to be biased from the point of someone who simply hates the game and picks and twists anything so he can be mad at it. Based on the title, his video is supposed to touch on the trans representation, but then he goes on rants about how notes are written. The notes may be about being trans and written by the game's trans character, however, it has nothing to do with representation when you argue over how long a message is. Nate goes out of his way to ridicule the notes in a, his words, caveman voice, which to me sounds more like he's acting as if Taash is supposed to be some big dumb idiot. And I have said it before, I don't like Taash that much. I don't like their character stereotype, but from the game you know that Taash is not dumb. Taash is very knowledgeable in things such as animal handling and specifically dragons. They are emotionally and developmentally wise, potentially held back, and you could say that they lack social awareness. Which is also an interesting thing for him to point out and pick at, because apparently Nate and I both have autism to an unknown degree, which can be a cause for social unawareness. This is not a one-time issue though. Throughout his video, Nate constantly focuses on small things and goes deeper into them than necessary by making up things and situations which left me speechless multiple times. He brings up things such as internalized misogyny or internalized transphobia, which are both terms I hate, since some people, like Nate, throw them around without actually knowing when they should be applied. I explained his claim of internalized misogyny in this video already, finding him incorrect on that term, and rather he is getting upset at Taash for experiencing dysphoria, something that Nate claims he felt before when his own transition was still far away due to his young age. Internalized transphobia is, if I had to put it anywhere here, what I find Nate to perfectly showcase. I agreed with him on things such as not fully understanding or rather not relating to people who want to present themselves as trans to the outside world. While I can't relate to these people, I accept them and their presentation. I would never dare to, especially so openly and proudly in a video, call anyone whose transition journey and goals don't align with mine, call them sick. Just because you figure out who you are at a later point in time doesn't mean you are immature or sick. It just means that it took more time for you. And yes, I know I'm beating a dead horse by constantly repeating this point, but you need to understand how insane this is to me. When I heard him say it, I couldn't believe it. I still cannot believe how he thought this would be an okay thing to say, let alone post. And I'm not saying this cause, ooh, Snowflake is triggered or anything. Just imagine saying this in any other context. Taking a more normalized and socially accepted thing, maybe like being bi, I don't know. Imagine someone tells you that because it took you longer to figure out you actually like both, you were mentally a child till that point. Just because you are unsure if you like to take on a male or female role in society, you are sick? This is an insane take no matter how you put it. And he just says this. Nate somehow acknowledges that as well, stating that he knows that his experience isn't the only one, yet still feels comfortable to make fun of a character in a game that doesn't align with himself. He insults others that don't have his experience, he does all these things while then throwing in things like, it's just my opinion or every experience is valid, but to quote Nate directly, too little, too late. You cannot make a 45-minute video and repeatedly discredit other people while looping around and try to act like, oh, it's just my opinion, and that somehow makes your insults hurt less. This isn't even about myself, but I constantly think of one specific friend of mine who struggled and still does with their identity. They told me how hard it is to figure out who they are because they are scared to use different pronouns, names, or even dress the way they want to because they don't think they will be accepted. And I can only imagine what it must be like for someone who's suffering through this stage to come across your video and hear you so boldly discredit their life. Nate, you claim that the game is actively harming and even making fun of trans people, while you are making a fool of yourself, putting trans people in a worse light that the game ever could by being grossly demanding with things such as saying that the devs have to include your very specific experience in their game and acting as if everyone's forced to love that trans character, which is, as I have said and shown in this very video, not the reality. You say that Taash is just some self-insert only because you cannot relate to them and deem their story as someone's, I don't know, fetishized trauma dump? Is that it? One of the greatest ironies to me is that a few days after posting this video, that as far as I know you wrote the script for it, out, recorded, edited and posted, you make this FAQ pinned comment, which includes this. I'm autistic and I genuinely do not give a shit about what people think about me. First of all, again, the autism mention. If you are not willing to give more context, then don't bring it up. Nobody will know if your autism has anything to do with how your brain works in a context that matters to the video, and if you keep throwing in things like that, it will only sound like you try to put up a shield to not be attacked. Which again, would be ironic since you mentioned that trans people are not above being criticized and disagreed with, which in my opinion also goes for disabilities. Then you say that you don't give a shit about what people think about you. Nate, I do not believe you. I don't think anyone believes you. Cause if that was the case, then why respond to comments? Why make an FAQ? Why explain yourself at all? You said what you said and you don't care about what people think. Then why address them? You cannot make a video like this and expect everyone to kiss your feet, and when things don't go the way you want them to, throw out corrections and excuses while also claiming that you don't care. This is not how this works. All this does is make you look like a tool and a fool. Hell, I am terrified of getting backlash for this video, despite thinking that I am doing the right thing here. It's always a risk to put your opinions on the internet, and if you are not prepared to deal with the critique or find yourself unable to ignore it, don't post your opinions. A friend of mine said that you're possibly rage baiting, and I don't know, I personally don't think so. I think you are an extremely hateful person who thought they had it all figured out, and hey, hating on a game that is already getting hate, what could possibly go wrong? Pair that with an extremely narrow, possibly narcissistic worldview, this is what you get. And this possibility that rage bait is all that this is made me reconsider posting this. This video was never meant to be an attack. This video is my opinion and I tried to be nice. I am aware that the next words that will leave my mouth will be harsh. I tried being nice, charitable, interpreting your words as best I could. But now, having heard everything I have, I am tired. I am exhausted, disgusted, angry, astonished. With that being said, in the off chance that you, Nate, B-Tier Mutineer, see this video, if there's any possibility that you end up watching the entire video or even just this part, I want to ask you something. Nate, who the fuck do you think you are? Who do you think you are to be able to not ask, but demand to be represented in a game that at least try to be inclusive, where you are actively gatekeeping not only what a transition should feel like, but also should result in and when it should begin? Gatekeeping who is or isn't trans or non-binary. You say that this game is harmful and will make people hate us more. But no, it's not the game. People who hate us will look at the content in the game and hate it. They will hate the studio, cry and whine, make fun of it, nothing changes. No, it's people like you who make people hate us. You who made a video under the guise of being a trans guy, just giving their opinion on trans representation on a game that you quite clearly decided to hate before even giving it a chance. Thinking that just because of how you identify, you have the right to invalidate other experiences, cause you are not critiquing representation in the video. You pick anything that doesn't align with your perfect self and tear it apart. The game having bad writing and being cringe will not cause more harm. You actively giving transphobic and general hateful people more ammunition will. These people won't look at the mirror scene thinking trans people are playing dress up. They won't see the Bharv Scene and decide to make fun of us. No. These people will watch your video because they hate us. They will watch your video and mine because we openly state in our title that we are trans and talk about trans things on a popular game. They hate watch these things to get more reasons to hate on us, based on what we say and talk about. They will watch these videos hoping trans people will cry about how they want more inclusion, or, like in your case, they hear a trans guy say things like, if a non-binary person agrees to feel more like one gender than another, they are not actually non-binary, and use that to discredit how they identify. You said so many things. Every time you make fun of Taash, every time you say that other people are sick, this is what these people will add to their tool belt to tear us down with. Because of what you say, they can now say, hey, even trans people agree that this isn't real. I never thought I would make a video on the topic of gender issues, because I am not active in the LGBT scene. At all. I reap the benefits of people fighting for our rights and representation. Thanks to this community, it has just gotten easier in my country to continue my own transition. I may not agree with everyone who falls under this term, but I will do my absolute best to never put anything out there that can be weaponized. So with this video, I hope, if I even reach one person, that you can listen to me and take something positive from this. Don't let anyone, no matter their label or title or whatever, tell you who you are based on their understanding. Only you can figure out this, and only you can decide who you are and who you want to be. It is not always easy, and I don't even have the words to describe how vile and sad it is that so many people will never live long enough to find who they are, let alone live their true self. I am insanely fortunate to not only be able to transition and be who I want to be, but also to have a voice and the ability to put it out there. That is why I recognize and tell you that we cannot just say things like what I've heard and think that's okay. And if you are a person who doesn't like or agree with LGBT folks, you don't have to agree with us. You don't have to become an active supporter or anything. All I ask of you is to show us respect like you would any other person. Don't actively fight against our human rights. That is all, and you literally do not have to do anything to do that. I don't want to spread any more hate. I want people to think for themselves, make up their own mind, and learn that you don't have to agree with someone on everything to simply respect them. Despite what it may seem, I respect Nate. I agree with some of his opinions, but it's the language that I do not agree with. The claims, the hypocrisy, the attitude. That is what I despise. With all that being said, Dragon Age the Veilguard is by far not a perfect game. It has many issues and I believe that LGBT-focused content could have been handled much better, but that is not a big issue. In my opinion, they have writing problems all throughout the game. Again, I will make a video where I review this game in its entirety and talk about the issues I believe I found, so if you're interested in hearing my actual opinion on the entire game, as a trans man but not focused on the LGBT topic, be my guest. I will go into everything ranging from graphics, animation, UI, gameplay, plot, writing, over to the point where Algernon kinda sounds like Meat Canyon's parody of Markiplier. All of that will be in there. Don't harass anyone, be kind, try to educate, and with that I will finally end this video. Thank you for listening and be safe.